Well, welcome everyone to today's teaching. And as you could see, something I believe very relevant in the light of all the evil and wickedness and uncleanness that is bubbling out with regards to this whole scandal of the man with the island. And so today's teaching is still very much in line with what we've been talking about, the two trees, but very much practical around this very topic. And as you could read, the root of all evil, obviously relating to the book of Timothy, talking about that thing we call money. And if you apply to it the view and the value system of the world, and how it becomes super dangerous and very destructive. So we need to look at that this morning. How do you approach it? What do we think about it? How does it work? And we're going to drill in a little bit. So let's start off with that text that is so familiar to all of us, 1 Timothy 6:10. For the love of money is a root of all evil. It is through this craving that some have been led astray and have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves through with many acute pangs. So the emphasis is here on the love of this thing. And what we'll see, it actually takes on a character and nature of its own, so that the Bible actually later calls it in a very personified way an idol mammon. And so let's go further. The statement that I want to launch this teaching off from is this. In many ways, the function and promises that were once attributed to God in previous eras have been systematically transferred to money in the modern world. In other words, that which we are supposed to give to God alone, modern man gives to money. His allegiance has shifted, and instead of that relationship with God and the reliance on God, he now relies on the tom in his pocket. Money has become not just a medium of exchange, which is supposed to be, but the central mediator and modulator of our relationship with reality, effectively functioning as a rival God. And that's what I want to picture before you today. It's the love of this thing to such an extent that it becomes an idol, to such an extent that allegiance and trust moves slowly, stepwise, from God to money, and how that changes each one who steps into that trap. Now, it's so very important because in the light of what is coming to be revealed in the world around the man with the island and all his cronies and the so-called elites, who I don't think doesn't even deserve the name, there's one common denominator, and that is money. People sell their souls for it. They will do anything for it. They'll bend their morals. They'll even break their morals. They'll take lives. And it's by no coincidence that the princes of the world in the book of the Revelation, chapter 18, laments the fall of Babylon, because the central activity there was around the merchandise, particularly mentioning the merchandise of the souls of men for money, which promises a lot. And so we're going to have a look at that this morning, how subtly the system of the world, the concept of money, quickly moves away from just a token and medium of payment into something else. It morphs into an idol that promises many things. And it takes the place of God. And it is directly linked to the tree of knowledge. And I'm going to show you that this morning. There's a lot to learn. How is it possible that the world could be so deeply rotten and corrupt? What sits behind it? Well, they all have thick wads of cash, right? Let's begin in Luke 16:13. No servant is able to serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will stand by and be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. That's very clear. It's so interesting. It doesn't say you can't serve God and the devil, because even those little organizations with all their logos and their practices is powerless without this one thing called money. So the big idol here is money and the worship of it, the love of it to such an extent that you'll do anything to get it because of what you perceive to get from it. So let's talk a little bit about that. Money becomes an idol not because it exists, but by what it commands. What was designed to serve human stewardship gradually demands service. You want more of it, you sell your soul. I've seen it with people in the business world. You can slog away day to day and barely survive, and then you can work yourself up in the system up to a point. And if you want more, it's going to cost you more. And it's at this point where a means of exchange becomes a taskmaster that demands worship, because it promises things to the heart that's selfishly inclined. Now, the transformation occurs when trust shifts. And I want to just look quickly at how does it happen? How does money become an idol even in a Christian's life? Okay? Instead of functioning as a tool under God's sovereignty, wealth begins to promise security, identity, and control. Can you see all these things belongs to God? And He alone can give that in a safe environment because He is all of it. But this rival now promises security, identity, and control, and future stability, even if you may, because if you can just hoard enough, you can secure far enough, or at least till your last breath. So what happens? It replaces that which belongs to God alone. And this is not always consciously happening for Christians, although nowadays the perversion in Christian circles is to such an extent that they use God to get worldly security. My name's Jimmy, I'll take anything you can give me. Because apparently God is there to give you this type of security. He's not there to be it in His person. So, when the heart looks to money for protection, significance, and salvation, I'll remedy your situation, get you out of a fix. From uncertainty, mammon ceases to be currency and becomes a competitor deity. And you sing like Fiddler on the Roof, if I were a rich man. You know what I'm saying? And then you fantasize about all the powerful things you could do if you could only get your hands on some more. Time, emotional energy, imagination, planning, and anxiety. Let's just talk about that quickly. Your time, your energy, your imagination, your planning, and your fears will reveal which master you serve. Have you noticed, everybody, you can have nothing and be content, or you can have nothing and love money. Okay? If you could only have it. And then when you have nothing, you worry. But if you have a lot, you worry more. Because now you wake up in the morning thinking, how do I protect this? How do I grow it? How do I keep it from depreciating? And all your devotion is suddenly shifted to another God. You don't even know it, but it's happening. So, when financial accumulation dictates how you should order your life, money has moved from the pocket into the throne. And that's a very important thing to think about, folks, because as far as the world is concerned, they have this God. They bow to him every day. Their lives revolve around it. You know, like we always say, the one man who ever came to insight said, I was climbing the ladder of success. And when I got to the top, I found it was standing against the wrong wall. But guess what? Took him his whole life. Now it's gone. It's wasted. So, how does this happen? What can Christians learn? How do they guard themselves from spiraling down into worshipping another God? Well, there's a little bit of a process that happens in the hearts and minds of men. Now, of course, the media and marketing has a great role to play in this consumerist society. But I want to show you at the heart what happens. Trust shifts from God to object. It's all around self. You see, if the cross doesn't work in us daily, there's a subtle working of self. And self wants to have more stability. It wants to be sure. Okay? And so trust buys into what the world presents as security. And folks, I mean, if you study the whole fiat system, it's a belief system. It's a bubble with nothing behind it. That's why we're seeing this great effort on a great reset, because the guys who blew up the bubble realize it's about to pop. And when it pops, people are going to get hurt. It's a fictitious system. The whole world, every single country in the world exists because of debt. And there's nothing behind it because they moved it away from gold and asset-backed value. So people believe in something and they will spend their lives on that belief only to find it volatile, inconsistent, and nothing to rely on. And that's when you wake up and it's too late, because you have exchanged the one true, consistent security in the universe, which is God himself, for a rain bucket that holds no water. Anyway, so trust shifts. You know, I've got to compete with the Joneses. The way it works in this world is people buy things they don't need with money they don't have to impress people they don't even like or know, because they bought into the lie. And so there's this movement of trust. Man, if I can just improve a little bit here and there, if I can just get the gloss up, man, maybe people will think something of me, because mammon promises something of an identity, of a worth, of power, of value, of security, of freedom of choice. It's all locked up in this idol. Okay? So, the shift is towards this system for safety and value. And then, now my security gets misplaced. I'm trusting the Lord, but I'm trusting him to give me stuff. Okay? I'm using the laws like many Christians do. I just got to get stuff, and they declare and they decree, and security has been misplaced. If God is not enough, folks, I don't know what you're going to do when the heavens are shaken and everything comes to an end. What security do you have then? But I guess we'll have to wait and see, right? And so security gets misplaced because the age-old principle works. The lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. It all appeals to me because I'm not walking close to God. This is clearly already an indication of poor relationship with the Lord or deterioration of relationship with the Lord. Okay? So security is misplaced. Humans like to have things that they can control. They want things that they feel they're in control and that will protect them. So provision is substituted suddenly by possession. You see, in relationship, eating from the tree of life, what do you have? God every day provides. God looks after me. I don't have to know. Because constantly He's my security. He's my provision. And we used to love to sing, Jehovah Jireh, the Lord my provider, right? But in a perverse sense, because I want to get stuff. But in reality, what is it? God looks after His own. But you have to walk with Him. And so, this has been replaced with possession. You know, we've got to stack it up. Secure the future. Have you ever noticed how people are jumping around currently in the world, phoning whoever expert? They couldn't phone this other guy because apparently he's dead. Because he's got inside scoop on where to put your money so that it doesn't rot away. Where do you invest? Oh, shucks, the AI bubble is bursting. Oh, shucks, this thing is going down. Gold's inflated, now it's deflated. And all you're busy with, you're riding the waves of the inconsistency of the God of mammon, and he's just whipping away at your life. Okay? So, what do we have? Provision substituted with possession. It's a self-serving reliance. Do you even know what it is to trust the Lord? Further, identity is reorientated. It's self-definition because the world we live in, you can be the biggest pervert, fool, deranged, subhuman in mind, animalistic. But if you have that Tom and you wear the nice brand, then everybody worships you. You must be successful. Okay, so I guess the enemy has his marketers. They appear successful, you know. And so what do we have? We have a reorientated identity. I just need to live in the right place. I need to drive the right car. I mean, do you know how to test that? Just see if you can get along with normal people with nothing. And see whether you feel humiliated. Ooh, I can't be seen in that vehicle. You got a problem. Okay? So identity is reorientated. Achievement, wealth, and status. You see, this God promises something. It takes the place of the one true God. Because as Christians, we're supposed to say that my identity is hidden in Christ with God. What people say means nothing. Forget the people. We are the people. Okay? But suddenly we care because suddenly we have the right suit or the right glasses, the right gel in the hair, the right, nowadays it's beard stuff. Man, I just look so smooth. It looks like I've got the means and it gives me a facade, an image. And isn't it true that people just love that image? There's no character. There's no quality in the person. There's no consistency. There's no love relationship with the Lord. There's nothing. I guess you can buy anything, right? And that's why people say, you know, for those who say money can't make you happy, they just don't know where to shop. Well, I guess for them it's true. So, desire focuses on created things. So, the heart's desire should be towards God. But once trust is broken, once there's attraction to things in the world, what happens? The desire shifts. And it shifts now towards created things. And that's at the root of the fall that I've explained in the past. The creature turns away from the creator towards created things. It becomes an idolatry. Okay? It's materialism. Materialism is fulfilling a spiritual need with something material or someone. And so we have the birth of materialism. Now, the next thing is this mammon promises autonomy. I can do it the Sinatra way. I can do what I want. I'm free. I bought my freedom. I'm serving this new thing that gives me freedom. Well, only freedom to a point, because I have to check, the balance. I have to check whether I'm losing or making. I have to check whether I'm expanding. I have to check whether somebody's stealing. It's an unbelievable job. Okay? But at least I'm autonomous. Doesn't it sound very much like that tree in the garden? It's an overreach. You don't need nothing. Isn't it interesting that Jesus said that it's more difficult for a rich man to go through the eye of the needle? What was he saying? What is that eye of the needle? Well, that's that entry where the sheep go in through the gate at night if they do come late. It means he has to crawl in there through the sheep dung. He won't do that. It's just too important. You can rather get a camel through there than a rich man into heaven. Guys, do you see what I'm saying? Because, guess what? It's autonomous. I can do it my way. I don't need God. Fear and anxiety dominate. Well, now that I have, first I so much long to have, but now that I have, I'm worried all the time. Which currency should I invest in? Which metal should I do? Which blockchain should I go with? Oh no, I'm going to lose there. Fear and anxiety. What happens if they don't pay out? What happens if I've invested them, they go belly up? Yep. Ethical flexibility. And it's about self-promotion. Now that I have this God, what do I do? Well, if you want to grow in life and make it in life, you have to do stuff. Ethics is relative in any way, so just bend it or break it rather. Then you don't have to bend it again. Okay? And so these people act without ethics. Isn't that what exactly we see in the news currently with all the millions of files? These people are deranged. But what feeds them? Money, 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 right? Like Abba sang. Okay? And so they want more. Hollywood is so funny, and all the movies are so funny about talking about these things. There was this little cartoon called Over the Edge, because we can understand enough is never enough. Exactly? That's exactly this God. You can never have enough, right? And this is what we see, the obsession. This is what mammon promises, but he can't deliver. There's no security in him. It's just an inflated bubble. It's just inconsistency. There's compromise. You sell your soul in the end, the bubble collapses, and then what happens? There's nothing left. And so, devotion is redirected because you're so over anxious, you need to get up early, very early, to make sure, you're not that early worm that get caught by the bird. But you're the early bird. Anyway, so there's this new redirected devotion. Then, finally, in the light of all these things, God is just displaced. Oh, we love to talk about God. We love to talk about him. But is there devotion? It's like the business guy who's telling me he's a Christian. He said, look, Louis, I'll tell you honestly, I had to rush it the past month. I told God, listen, man, I'm on a flight. I'm about to catch a flight. I've got flights booked for the whole week. I've got a few early meetings. I've got 5 minutes for you, Lord. Well, that says about everything. See, ultimate allegiance is transferred to the object of desire. The fallen self enthrones itself indirectly. It trusts in a new God. And then we're going to see how this fits in. What I'm actually doing is to show you that it's the same message, eating from the wrong tree. This one just has bills hanging from it, but it makes the same promises. It makes the same promises of independence and autonomy, identity of life. Okay, so let's go further. As I said, it's the same story, different source. The wrong tree. 1 John 2:15. Do not love or cherish the world or the things that are in the world. If anyone loves the world, love for God is not in him. For all that's in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, these do not come from the Father, but are from the world. Look at it. All that is in the world, not some, all of it. The lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, the pride of life. You see, that is the attraction. Money, instead of being a token and means of exchange, has taken on characteristics, making promises like God, taking the place of God. And so we see the way that it happens in our lives is exactly the same way that it happened in the lives of Adam and Eve in the garden, because we have a repeat of all three things: lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. For all that's in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, these are not from the Father, and the world passes away and disappears. Okay? And it's forbidden cravings. It's forbidden cravings. Isn't it interesting that people with money who worships mammon think they're better than other people? Think that they are special and therefore they have, instead of seeing that they are sickly corrupt and therefore they steal? It's amazing how they then look down on others instead of having a stewardship over what they've been entrusted in. They hoard, possess, and develop for themselves a false identity. And then people call them elite. Well, to be there, you have to be depraved. So I guess you can't call it elite. Okay? Part of the party is to have broken morals and be absolutely depraved. And so we see the following: desire detached from trust becomes idolatrous because it treats created satisfaction as superior to Creator's wisdom. And guys, we're looking at the root of all evil. The Bible doesn't say money per se. Money is not a moral thing. It's a means. It's a token of exchange. And the Christian's heart and attitude towards it is that of stewardship, responsibility and accountability without unjust gain. Okay? That's his work. And he makes the kingdom come with it. The guy in the world says, well, I've got something that I can make work for me independent of God. And now the church has bought the same lie. See, what happens here is the object, turning away from the Creator towards created things, and the thing that money can give me becomes charged with promise. The belief that something visible can complete what only communion with God can sustain. This is going to help me. This is going to make me feel safe. This is going to secure me. This is going to give me a future. Oh, I thought God's going to give you a future. Isn't it true that the Bible tells us, you know, you who say, tomorrow I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Shouldn't you rather say, if the Lord wills, because He's in control? How do you know you even have tomorrow? And these people plan like they have eternity, so they develop a few transhuman tricks and all of that. All fantasy land, living from the wrong tree. Now, let us draw a comparison before you to show you that we are dealing here with nothing other than that same test. The Christian in the garden, same test as in the garden. The Christian faces the same test. In the garden, what happened there was a choice, a relational choice. Man lives either in dependence on the Lord, or there's a relational overreach and he seeks to be like God, autonomous, self-determining, self-willed, deciding what is right and wrong. And if you listen carefully, you'll hear exactly those characteristics in those who serve mammon. But let's go further. So what happens? So the serpent temptation reframes the whole scenario in the garden, and there's a shift of trust. So what happens? You see, that shift of trust means confidence moves towards self and self-advancement. There's something I can gain from it. Isn't that exactly what mammon does? When money is reinterpreted and it's looked up to instead of looked down on. Okay? And so what happens? We see something. The issue is not the fruit. It's material nature. Like it is not the issue with the money. It's material nature. But the promise attached to it. In other words, autonomy, elevation, and self-determined wisdom. I can be so important. People are going to look up to me. It's all about self. Money enters human experience at precisely this fault line. In itself, money is a symbolic tool, a means of exchange, as I said, morally inert, but it's charged with promise. It begins to signify more than purchasing power. It appears to be stability, protection, dignity, and a kind of immortality. Immorality is the right word. Immortality, because I can secure the future. And for those who see they're not going to make it, they invest in this freeze techniques, right? Cryogenics. Just as the fruit appeared good, money presents itself as the guarantee of provision. Okay? It promises insulation from vulnerability, food on the table, shelter, solution to uncertainty, trust, subtly migrates from God's sustaining care to the visible balance in the bank account. Do you see what I'm seeing, guys? Look, I wrote this down and I was thinking, oh, this is so exactly the same as what that tree promised in the beginning. It's just another test on the same principle. It promises something. Is it true? I don't know if any one of you have ever lived by trusting the Lord. I tell you what, your flesh is screaming. It's not so comfortable. It wants what everybody else has. You know, the good news, however, is if you do walk in relationship with the Lord, your account may be empty, but God's provision is not. And He gives all good things in His time, keeping you close to Himself, relying on Him and not on what the world gives and has. Not so nice for the carnal man. Okay? The heart begins to reason that safety rests not in covenantal relationship, but in stored resources. Folks, I cannot tell you how important this is. We are a priesthood. God called us. He created us. When I looked lost, He provided for Adam and Eve in the garden. And His promise to provide for the righteous has always been there. Why should I care like the world cares? Why should I fear like the world fears? You know, unfortunately, in the light of all of this, you can hardly distinguish Christians from those who are in the world. They have the same fears, the same objectives, the same drives, the same ambitions, the same false identity. And then they have the Lord on their lips. And a good proof for that would be just take some Christian stuff and see what happens to them. Okay? It's not a covenant relationship anymore. Provision once received daily as gift becomes stockpiled as personal safeguard. Isn't that just typical? The fruit also a delight for the eyes, as we saw in the garden. So money does something. Vision reinterpret reality against God's word. In the same way, money is visible, measurable, and quantifiable. Okay? It produces a tangible sense of control. So it speaks to the senses, guys. I can count it and display it. I mean, if you go on the internet, you'll see people love to show their wads of cash. What does it mean? It's something they worship. To them, it's important. But unfortunately, it has crept into the church as well. To the church is important. Are you telling me God doesn't know how to look after his own? He allows them a compromise to seek security in another system, which is unstable, and in the process let them lose their souls and break their morality. So the visible begins to eclipse the invisible. That's what we're dealing with here. The eye teaches the heart what to trust. Gradually, assurance shift from God's character to financial metrics, and that's true for a lot of people. The visible replaces the relational. Faith is displaced by calculation. Now, tell me if I'm wrong, folks. Can you see how it creeps in? Oh, well, we're just responsible. Yeah, you move from responsible steward to responsible servant of a new God. We just want to make more. We want to make sure we are not mismanaging. You know, when I grow older, I want to travel the world. I want to take all these luxurious holidays. I want to do stuff, you know. I've worked hard for it, and I want to buy the status symbols I need, this, that, and the other thing. What about the kingdom of God, guys? You know, I'm very, very much convinced that because of mammon and the principles implied here, that so many of the children of God cannot be trusted with anything because they'll just go and hoard it up. And that's what I've seen. So the moment the creature is not more dependent on the Lord and becomes so very important and flashes everything and can show the power as far as the world is concerned, you know, starts to be very elevated, very important, VIP. You see, the rest are just lowlights. Independence masquerades as maturity. This autonomy replicates the original rupture in the relationship, which is life pursued apart from abiding trust in God. What do you have? Folks, I cannot tell you how many times I've seen this in ministry where people in the initial stages were very faithful, promised so many things to the kingdom of God for the expansion of the kingdom, but then started to grow in their worldly wealth, but also grew in their new identity, in their power and influence in society, and they correspondingly diminished in their heart for God and trust in God, and became very, very important. Okay? And so felt a little bit less in need of being in a faith and trust relationship with the Lord. And so what we're really seeing, folks, to summarize for you, and I'm going to lay it out, we have two ways of relating here. Again, the priest from the garden, as I've previously explained, lived in a trust and faith relationship. God is his everything. And what God does not open up for him, he wouldn't force in because it could destroy him. Okay? Then you have the other way of relating, which is an overreach, which is to empower self. And this is exactly what we see here. And I'm going to spell it out for you in parallel. So on the left-hand side, we have the tree of life, which is God is my ultimate security. God is the source of my provision. God is my identity and worth. My orientation and desire is towards God. My hope for the future is in God, not in an investment or a payout or some policy. Okay? Freedom from fear is because God is in control. But I understand very well that people think they have to secure themselves from inevitable acts of God. How funny. It tells me something about how you think and understand and relate to God. But anyway, let's look at how mammon has taken this place. You see, on the one side, God's my ultimate security, but on the other side, we have a perceived security where in accumulated reserves, the stability is tied to numbers, not covenant faithfulness. So we have another tree. He's going to do something. And here's the fact that I want you to think about beforehand already. I'm going to elaborate shortly. Do you know that what was promised in that tree of the knowledge of good and evil was not delivered, but the exact opposite? It still works the same way. Pursuing and serving this God is the greatest anticlimax you'll ever have in your life or experience. It's such a disappointment. The next point is, on the one side, God is my source and my provision. On the other side, eating from this tree, where mammon rules, provision is attributed to earning, investing, and storing. So guess what? Gratitude shifts subtly from giver, God, to mechanism. You see, God will always be the provider. But those who have moved into this system and worship another God see themselves as the providers. Hey, I provide your work. I provide your pay. No, you don't. God does that. Maybe he's using you and you don't know it, but it's God. You provide nothing. Okay? Then, so the source of provision is reassigned. So where God is my identity and worth, on the other side of the equation, this false tree, identity through net worth. Do I need to elaborate? Income, assets, lifestyle, social standing. It's how it works. Oh, we live above the breadline on the right side of the railway tracks, right? We live up the hill in the heights. If you just add the heights to the name, then I guess you're important. Okay? And this is so important to people. What a fool's paradise. You know, you have to step on a lot of people and steal from many, many more to get where you are. You have to exploit the poor. You think God's going to stand idly and watch that? Further, orientation towards God is moved towards orientation for this security, the acquisition. And let's see. Desire is trained by accumulation, advancement, and comparison. I got it. I've grown. I'm important. Look me now. Look more, no hands, you know. Then hope in the future is in God for the Christian. But there is a financially engineered hope. Don't worry, I've buffered myself. Come what may. Let them bomb whatever they want. Let whatever happens in the Middle East happen. Let them do whatever they want with their crypto. I'm secure. I don't know how, but I somehow got the inside scoop. It's financially engineered. There's nothing certain. The Bible says nothing certain, but people don't believe it. And I guess we're in for a rough ride, and you'll discover it. Freedom from fear is in God. But on the other hand, serving this mammon, first you were afraid of having nothing. Now you're afraid somebody's going to take your something. Okay? You're always afraid. You're never free from fear. And what if you have all of this and you can't enjoy it because you get sick? That's another truth. So within God there is a way of relating and moral boundaries, but eating from this tree, guess what happens? Compromise for gain. Doing it for the team. No, you're doing it for yourself. Compromise, sellout, perversion, participation. The worst of the worst things that we don't even want to mention as Christians. You see, because once the allegiance shifted, you'll do what your God asks. No, I'm doing it for the business. We're taking the guys out, We're just going to drink and do this and the other thing, but it's for the business. So that justifies everything. So your allocation of time and energy, when we serve the Lord, we focus on the Lord. But suddenly this thing takes all your time, all your effort, all your energy, all your life. And you end up, what's interesting? I've seen so many of these so-called successful men. The highest form of activity that they have is to raise an eyebrow. They can't even properly lift their arms. They all got huge gas tanks, as unhealthy as can be, but they got money because they did it for the team, right? So your allocation of time, I'm getting clients, I'm doing this. You're selling out, man. Come on. Then, emotional attachment is to God, whereas this, mammon, now you're attached to your things. Don't touch my things, okay? If you take my things, I'm very disturbed. If you take my things and damage it, I'm highly disturbed. If you bring me more things, I'm happy. So, there's sacrificial devotion for the Christian. His life doesn't belong to him. But there's no sacrificial devotion when you serve mammon. There's taking from those who sacrifice and you hoard for yourself. Okay? The one thing that you would be willing to sacrifice, however, is your relationships, your rest, your health, your integrity. Everything goes as long as you can get more of this stuff. Okay? So your interpretive lens, when you're in God, you're eating from the tree of life, is to see things from God's perspective and have the values God instills in you by the Spirit and the Word. You are responsible and accountable. But once you move to this autonomy, this independence, you eat from that tree, you start to worship it. Guess what happens? Everything relates to you as it relates to value and worth and status. He's an insignificant person. It's just another Christian. They're just little poor things that I have to look after. Let me tell you something. God will make you stumble over the messenger and miss the message, because that's just how he works. That which you look down on could very much be the instrument of God. And that's just how he works. Doesn't need to impress you. Okay? Then, as far as the object of service is concerned, it's service to God. But eating from this wrong tree, there is functional servitude to wealth. Guys, can you see what I'm trying to show you? We started off with the root of all evil. The thing in itself is not nothing. It's neutral. There's no morality attached to it. But the moment when man with some intrinsic selfish attributes looks at it, it starts to glitter with promise of identity, freedom, power, social standing, etc., etc., comforts, whatever. And you know what happens? Even the church itself is destroyed through its hedonism. Now, as you could see, I titled the slide, Chasing the Wind. Because there's just a bit of a reality check we quickly have to have. And I'll begin by giving the example of diamonds. Where does it get its value? Is it industrially usable? Can they copy it? It's an artificial value that was pushed by a bunch of people out of London particularly. And it was given a value, especially around weddings and rings and the value of the spouse and And so they exploited people with a piece of carbon. And so it's so unbelievable to see how people would put value to stuff. To me, something's valuable if you can use it. But no, we hoard pieces of metal out of the ground. We smelt it, we put it in bars and put it somewhere where nobody can take it, and we say we have value. It's unbelievable. It's so unrealistic. Can you use it? Can you eat it? Can you plant something? You can do nothing with it. It's a piece of metal that apparently has value, and even that has been manipulated from London for years. Okay, so there's no intrinsic value in this system. It's a fiat system. There's nothing that backs it. There's no piece of land. Previously, there used to be precious metals that you can go and collect and sell, but there's nothing. It's a number on a screen. So, guess what? It depends on collective belief. You have to believe that a few numbers on a computer is going to be sufficient for you to get along in life, and it's going to make you very important if you have lots of numbers. Okay? It's going to give you status and control. It's a belief system, folks. Further, it's sustained by coercion because it's being fed by printing of paper, by issuing securities, by taking real hard-earned income from people in the form of taxes and servicing national debts, papers issued, receiving money which is in electronic form, which with no backing. And the question is, where did they get it? It's created. It's a fiat system. Go and study it. If you ever are interested, read a bit The Creature from Jekyll Island. Okay? Very interesting. It's not the only book. There are lots. Anyway, let's see. It's sustained by coercion. It's fragile and vulnerable. If you've ever been to the UK or the US on those trading floors and you see how people speculate, how today you win and tomorrow you lose, or even on the currency markets, how you win now and a few seconds later you're down and out. It's speculative and fragile. It's vulnerable, yet people trust in it. Why don't you just trust in God? And that's the game people play. Have you ever noticed that there are certain people who keep on making big moolah? Well, those who play in that world, play in the paper world. Contrary to those who work hard, who are faithful, and you have something that they can produce. Okay? So there's an illusion of security. It's an illusion of security. And the reason why I'm rubbing this in a little bit, chasing the wind, is to show you what a perverse value system we have. In contrast to this, we have God. We have a God that we can trust. We have a God who promised. You know what the problem is? People are not willing to trust. Is he going to be faithful? Well, I don't know. I better stick my hand out and sort things out myself. Is he going to be faithful tomorrow and the next day? I don't know. Let me secure the future for myself. Let me tell you one thing, folks. Like that beautiful old song, I don't know what the future holds, but I know who holds the future. I'd rather be with him. So go and read a little bit about chasing the wind. It's a fictitious, it's a system you can't rely on, yet you sell your life for it. And so, what I want to say, as a summary thus far, the tragedy in Eden was that grasping the fruit did not deliver the promised life. Now look at this. It produced the opposite. And this is the warning, folks, that we do not get dragged in. And I'm saying all of this in the light of all the gunk that's been coming forth and coming out from these files being released, and every who's who in the zoo being involved. Okay? What do we have to say for ourselves? Are we maybe not victims of the same system? I've said it before and I'm going to say it again. Everybody is looking out for the mark of the beast, while they don't realize that they have the system, the same principles, the same idol in their hearts. I'd rather be concerned with that. So guess what? Likewise, when money becomes ultimate, it does not produce the peace it advertises. You've got to hear. It's the same as the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It multiplies fears. Fear of loss, fear of insufficiency, fear of decline. Instead of liberating the heart, it binds it to vigilance. You've got to be there all the time to watch. What was taken to secure life begins to demand life in return. I took this route, I want to secure life, and now it demands your life. Folks, you've got to see this. The Lord alone can help you, that you can turn back to Him. But we've got to be so careful. We don't want to walk this road. So look at this. It doesn't produce. It takes time, attention, loyalty, and sacrifice. This pattern reveals something fundamental about idolatry, because that's what I did. I showed you there's a process, and I'm going to show you later in this slideshow. There's a process. What is it? Well, idolatry overpromises and underdelivers. It offers empowerment but produces alienation. The fruit did not change humanity's status upwards. That's in the garden. It destabilized their relationship center. It's still the same thing. It's not going to improve you. It's not going to give you the life you think you're going to have. Life without God makes no sense. Man, you can live on the best beach house in the world. If God's not there, it's going to be disappointing. Okay? Instead of liberating the soul, this mammon narrows it. Money enthroned narrows it, sorry. Once you put it there, everything narrows down to just that. The very thing grasped for peace begins to demand tribute. It requires sacrifice of rest, of simplicity, of integrity, of relationship. It calls for constant monitoring. The promise of control creates a cycle of heightened control. Peace becomes conditional and therefore fragile. Can you see? It can't deliver, folks. It can't deliver. Attention becomes tethered to performance. Time is consumed. Basically, guys, we're in trouble. If you follow this route, if you eat from the wrong tree, as I tried to show you this morning, it will deliver in the same manner as the tree of knowledge. A nothing burger. There's nothing there. It's a disappointment. We cannot afford to sell our souls for what produces nothing. What I want to just show you quickly is this. Eating from this tree, bowing to this idol, we exchange substance for shadow, the eternal for the temporal, identity in God for a volatile market-based identity. We exchange reality for representation, for image. We exchange what is of weight and substance for vapor. We exchange being the servant of God to being under a new master. There's a new master, and it's a rude taskmaster. We exchange relational trust for self-securing control. There is no way that we can survive spiritually when we start to function like that. And then, folks, I want to conclude with these two portions of text. Matthew 6:19. Do not gather and heap up and store up for yourselves treasure on earth, where moth and rust and worm consume and destroy, and where thieves break through and steal. You see the hoarding, trying to secure myself. It tells us it gets eaten from the inside. It gets corrupted through rust and decay. And then whatever survives gets taken by others with no morality. But gather and heap up and store for yourselves treasure in heaven, where moth nor rust nor worm consume and destroy, and where thieves do not break through and steal. Now listen to this. For where your treasure is, there your heart also will be. How important is that? Do you love Him? Can you trust Him? Or do you need to eat this tree quickly while you're under pressure? And then we conclude in James 5:1, come now, you rich, weep aloud and lament over the miseries that are surely coming upon you. Your abundant wealth has rotted and is ruined, and your many garments have become moth-eaten. Can you see the two texts are related? Your gold and silver are completely rusted, and we know they don't rust, but it means something. It's corrupted, it's decaying, it means nothing. And their rust will be a testimony against you, and it will devour your flesh as if it were fire. You have heaped together treasure for the last day. And this is exactly how mammon works. It tells you, listen, hoard up, secure yourself, look after your own interest, the unholy trinity, me, myself, and I. And in the end, it delivers nothing. In the end, what we have done was to mismanage that which God has entrusted to us, to build and establish His kingdom. And so, folks, what needs to become very clear to us, in the light of what we can glean from this evil that is in the world, is not to even remotely develop the same attitude, the same trust, the same reliance, the same value. Instead of looking down, being a steward, you look up to it as it promising you something that you can find only in God. I pray the Lord helps each one of you. It's just another angle, as I said, on the two trees. But God willing, it will warn you. Because once you start on this road, it quickly sucks you into compromise and finally into destruction. Amen.